You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension, a dimension of sound, a dimension of sight, a dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of changes and fear. You've just crossed over into the unknown. I want everyone to think back to your first day of school. It could have been your first day entering into a new grade, or even your first day at a brand new school. For some of you, it may have been your first day back at school after like a 2-year COVID break. Think back to how it felt walking into class for the first time, finding your seat, figuring out where you're going to sit during lunch, or if you're homeschooled, maybe it's how you felt meeting your co-op or group of new friends for the first time. Okay, are you picturing your first day of school in your mind? Great. Now, on the count of 3, as loud as you can, yell out how that made you feel. 3, 2, 1, go! The first day of school comes with so many different feelings. It can be so unpredictable. Maybe you felt excited opening your very own locker for the first time, or maybe you felt nervous about finding friends to eat with in the cafeteria. Maybe you felt confused about where your class was located, or maybe you were happy to have a new teacher who seemed really nice. Maybe you felt lonely because you were new at school and didn't know anyone. Or maybe you were super relieved that your best friend was in your class. There are so many feelings that we experience when we start something new. Because when things change, we're going into the unknown. And going into the unknown means uncertainty. We've never gone through it before, so we don't know how to feel or what to expect. And that can be really exciting, but it can also feel really scary. That's why we're starting a new series today called Into the Unknown. Because as middle schoolers, well, change is something you know a lot about. Your friend groups might change, the rules you have to follow at home might be changing, your bodies might be changing, your family might be changing, your favorite activities might be changing. No matter what this looks like for you, the reality is that as middle schoolers, changes are happening to you and around you all the time. Let's face it, change is one of those things that we can't avoid in life. We've all gone into the unknown before, and we'll have to do it again and again. And that's why we're going to spend the next few weeks talking about how we can deal with the changes that come our way, both good and bad. And like we said, we're all experiencing a lot of unknowns right now. We're going through all kinds of changes. Some are good, some are bad, and some are, well, awkward. Simply being in middle school means that there will be opportunities for so many new things. New independence to make choices for yourself, new things to try, new people to meet, new teams to try out for, new clubs to join, new apps you're finally allowed to get, new freedom to stay out later with friends. All those new things, well, they mean change is possible. But the changes that happen in our lives because of those things aren't too bad, right? They're easy changes to deal with because they're the kinds of changes we usually want to happen. But unfortunately, there are other kinds of changes that happen in middle school too. Changes that we wouldn't choose and we can't control. Changes that are unpredictable. Changes that, if we're honest, we might not like at all. Sometimes, change can feel like this. Like when your parents announce they're getting a divorce, or you have to move to a new school, or you get injured during the first game and have to sit out the rest of the season, or your best friend drops you for a new friend group unexpectedly, or your class schedule gets harder, or your small group splits up, or someone you love passes away, or your older sibling moves out. Those type of changes, they might make us feel awful. They're the kind of changes that might make us absolutely hate the idea of change at all. Because going into the unknowns can feel really scary. Now, I know that for some of us, even if the change is scary or unwelcome or not something we choose, we don't necessarily hate change. In fact, something about going into the unknown is kind of exciting for some of us. But for others of us, change is something we don't deal with well. And in fact, we kind of hate it. In the middle of it, we might feel sad, angry, frustrated, or confused. And in fact, any kind of change, good or bad, leaves us feeling a little worried and stressed about what's going to come next. It leaves us feeling completely out of control. And I don't know about you, but I don't love feeling out of control at all. No matter how we feel about it, change is going to happen. And we all have to go into the unknown throughout our lives. And while I can guarantee that some of the changes that you're going to experience will lead to really cool and amazing things, I also know that others will be difficult and hard to handle. But because change is part of life now and as we get older, it's something we need to figure out how to handle. And since we know how changes are always going to come, how can we learn to stay strong when they do? Here's the good news for us. People have been struggling with how to handle change and the unknown since the beginning of time. All of the people who lived before and during the time of Jesus was on earth struggled when changes happened in their lives. They lived through a lot of the same things that we're going through today. Losing someone they loved, difficult situations with friends, heartbreak, uncertainty, and so much more. And because of all the unpredictability they faced in going into the unknown, many of those people struggled to trust that God was really in control. And when their lives were filled with so many unwanted and unexpected changes, how could they really trust that God was with them and for them? I don't know about you, but that's a feeling I can definitely relate to. But what's cool is that we're living thousands of years after these people, and because of that, we can learn from their experiences. We can look at the things they did and said and learned when it comes to dealing with change and apply it to our lives today. You see, over and over again, the people that we read about in the Bible who were dealing with so much change kept coming back to the same truth. And I think it's a truth that the writer of a historic document called Hebrews said best. Hebrews is a letter that was written to Christians when the church first started. This letter included some very practical advice about how to navigate life. The writer gave the early Christians a lot of great advice, but the truth that we're going to look at today is something that they could hold on to when they faced the unknown. It's something that I think can help us when we're experiencing change today too. Let's take a look. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 13:8. Now I know that sounds like a pretty simple statement, but it's actually a really big deal. In a world where literally everything has the potential to change, Jesus never changes. Jesus is always the same. And that means knowing Jesus changes everything when it comes to change. I don't know about you, but to me, this is great news. Since Jesus is God, it means we have access to the one person in the whole world who never changes, and that's God. So why is that important? If so much around us is still going to change, what does it matter that God doesn't? Well, God helps us feel secure and protected anytime we go into the unknown. We can depend on God when we experience uncertainties. When our families break up, or we get kicked off the team, when we move to a new city, or we lose a friend, or we get dumped. We can stay standing and strong when we're focused on the one person in our lives who stays the same, God. You see, God never changes when you're in the unknown. And when we keep our eyes on God, we can handle any of the changes that come our way. We can walk bravely into all the unknowns that change brings, and you can be confident when everything changes. Have you ever seen a dancer spin around and around and around during a performance? Maybe you wondered how they didn't get completely dizzy. And with all the change and movement happening with their body, you'd think that they'd fall flat on their face. But somehow they kept going. That was incredible. She spun around so many times, but stayed completely steady and secure. I would have fallen over. But do you know why she stayed so stable? It's because she focused her eyes on one unchanging spot in the room. As she turned, her gaze didn't leave that spot. Finding that spot over and over again helped her avoid dizziness, feeling unstable, and possibly hurting herself. What does that mean for us? That God never changes when we're in the unknown? It means God, who loves you now, will love you always. It means God, who cares for you now, will always care for you. It means God, who is with you now, will always be with you. It means the next time you're facing unknowns in your life, you don't have to be taken over by insecurity or fear or frustration. Instead, you can remain strong by looking toward an unchangeable God. It means you can be confident when everything changes. To help you do that, I want you to try just one thing. Everybody close your eyes for a minute. I want you to remember a time God was good to you in the past, a time when you felt God's love in your life. I want you to remember a time when God was constant, even when things around you were changing and unpredictable. Maybe it was coming to JHM and joining your small group. Maybe it was meeting a new friend at school or joining a club that you really love. Maybe it was when your mom got better after being sick for a long time, or your dad finally got that job. Maybe it was a time something worked out just the way that you prayed it would. Whatever it is, I want you to remember it. Write it down, put it somewhere that you can see it so that you can keep looking back at it. And then remember that the same God who did that good thing for you in the past is with you now. Since God was good and faithful in the past, that won't change in the future. No matter what else changes around you, you can know that the God who has been good and faithful will always be good and faithful. That is something that will never change. And for those of you who aren't sure what you believe about God or don't know if you've seen God be faithful, that's okay. Just think about a time in your life where something really good happened. Write that down and remember it. Or ask your small group leader or other members of your small group to share a story like that from their lives. We want these groups to be a place where you can ask questions and share stories and that will encourage each other. So if you're not sure where to look for God's goodness in your life, ask your small group to help you see it. Remember, you don't have to navigate this whole change thing alone. You have your small group so that you can listen to each other, lean on each other, and learn from each other. Talking about it with your group is a great place to start. So this week, I want you to remember that even when life changes all around us, we can be confident when everything changes by looking to the God who never changes. As you circle up with your small group, I want you to think about this question. What's one change you're experiencing in your life right now?